how can supervisors use the framework to develop the students' critical thinking in their research supervision?
Well, in many ways, and often this is the one approach that supervisors are very comfortable in because they are very familiar with the kind of questions that they will be asking in that framework. So they can be looking at different ways of analysing the argument. They can be asked the student to define the type of arguments they're making and ask them how much can you generalise from what you're saying. Is this an inductive or a deductive argument? What are the strengths and weaknesses of your sample? Can you critique your own work? Are you claiming causation? All of these are very common questions that supervisors will be asking anyway. It's quite useful for a supervisor to step back and say, in my discipline, what are the key kinds of things that I'm asking? Because in some disciplines, the immediate imperative will be to solve a problem. In others, it will be to define a problem or even just to problematize an issue. And these are kind of disciplinary differences in approaches to critical thinking. There are other examples. So, for example, in English, it will be how did you define your canon? Historians might be asking, how does your thesis fit with other people's narratives on this? How did you bound the time that you were looking at? What else was happening at the time? What other evidence might there be? So some of these questions you can see could be asked in any discipline, but highlighting them as coming from one discipline sometimes helps if you're doing transdisciplinary work. Also, then there's the kind of the normal binary between quantitative and qualitative work, which a lot of supervisors are very familiar with. So if you're doing quantitative work, it'll be what will the quantitative analysis prove, if indeed it proves anything? What will it not prove? How does it fit with other research that's happening? And what would disprove your theory? You might also ask, how can you make your qualitative analysis convince others, and what's your underlying argument here? And then a very fundamental question that underlines all of these is, what paradigm are you coming from? What is the philosophical underpinning of your work? And a good student should be able to answer that.